Welcome back to That Dad Guy. It's February 1st, 2024, and it's time for Stamp of the Month. This particular stamp has a major historical significance as it came out in a time when the world was in turmoil. We're going to get to those events before. I'm going to show you the stamp in my father's collection first, and then I'll show it to you over top, nice and close. This is the stamp we're talking about today, or maybe a series of stamps. This is George VI Coronation stamp that came out for May the 12th, 1937. So here you can see the stamp nice and close. It is a beautiful depiction of the new king and his bride on Coronation Day on May 12th, 1937. Well, what got us to this point? Why was this so important? Well, let's back up 1 year to 1936. What was happening in the world in 1936? Well, the King of England at the time was George V. He had recently celebrated his 25-year or his Silver Jubilee in 1935, and then in January of 1936, he passed away. Well, that left his oldest son to take over the throne, who would become Edward VIII in January. Now, what else was happening in the world in 1936? Well, there was 2 Olympics to take place. Those are usually positive things. The Winter and Summer Olympics were both being placed in Germany, Nazi Germany, because the Nazis had rise to power. They broke the Treaty of Versailles by retaking the Rhineland. Things like the American sprinter Jesse Owens, who got the gold medal in the 100-meter dash, was snubbed by Hitler at the games. So there was some tension going on there. Along with that, the Italians had gone into Ethiopia and taken over that area in a war. In Spain, they started a civil war. That was going on. In Japan, there was a coup. It was overthrown, or was squashed, but the prime minister then, who was kind of moderate, stepped down, and a more militant prime minister took over. So that was going on all in 1936. Now, King George V had reservations about his oldest son taking over. He says, "After I'm dead, the boy will ruin himself within 12 months. I pray to God that my eldest son will never marry and nothing will come between Bertie and Lilibeth to take the throne." Now, Bertie was the nickname of his second son, Albert, and Lilibeth was shortened for Elizabeth, his wife. And sure enough, Edward VIII in January took over the throne, but in December of the same year, he abdicated the throne to his brother because he wanted to marry his twice divorced American fiancée, Wallis Simpson, and so that's what they did. Now, when George VI took over, Albert changed his name regally to George after his father. George was one of his middle names, so it still fit, and he became George VI. There was some reservations, though, about him taking over the throne by the current government as well. So they thought that he was too weak. Bertie, as a child and still as an adult too, had a stutter. He had knocked knees, so he had to wear braces for that. He was a shyer person, and the reigning government in England, that would be Neville Chamberlain and his government, thought that maybe they should bypass Albert and his family and go to the next son in line, who also had a son, so there was already an heir to it. But they didn't get to do that. Albert succeeded as the throne. He took over and became George VI, and on May 12th, 1937, he had a coronation that was beyond grand. It had all the pomp and circumstance you would expect from an event like this. It was attended by leaders of all the different Commonwealth or British colonies, or most of them. High dignitaries were there. Its budget was 3 times more than that of the coronation of King George V in 1911, and it was taking place at Westminster Abbey. So why was this super important? Well, they decided that it was time to strengthen the British Empire. They needed to have a show of solidarity amongst all the British colonies, all the dominions that they oversaw. And they needed to do this because England had just come out of a First World War, Great Depression. They now, in the middle of the 30s, had gone from being a leading producer of coal and steel to having to compete with other markets that were producing it at much cheaper, and they needed to find a new source of income and employment for the workforce, and they needed strength at the top to do this. So having King George VI at the top coming in as a seemingly weak king, he needed to turn things around quick. And one of the things they did was they produced this stamp in a series across all the British Empire. How big was the British Empire? Well, here's a map showing in red of where they were around the world in the 1930s. Some say that after Queen Victoria, the empire slowly started to go downhill. It hadn't really hit a decline at this point in time. It will after the Second World War, though, but we won't jump ahead that far. So each country was given a chance to issue stamps to show and reflect what was going on, to have a continuity between the empire. And I'm going to start showing you some of these amazing stamps. One of them was Canadian. Canada chose to put out this single stamp, and I will show it in greater detail here. You can see that Canada went with the same format that Great Britain did with producing one stamp, but most countries produced 3 stamps at least in a variety of colors and denominations, and some of the used stamps are just as valuable as the mint stamps because they were in small amount of circulation, especially in those really small countries. I'm going to start showing you some of the stamps I've collected. So I've been able to go through and collect these ones. You can see the different colors. Some countries keep the colors in the same order as others. Some do slight variations. They're quite reflective here. I've been very fortunate enough to find some of these. Now, these ones I found at the local stamp fair not too long ago, and also was given a few by Liverpool Stamps. We're going to get to Liverpool Stamps and their connection as well soon. There are some beautiful ones that were put out by Newfoundland. So there is my father's collection in Newfoundland. They didn't just put out 3, though. They had to be different. They put out all of these ones to go with them. And I'm going to show you some stamps that you can find through Liverpool Stamps already. Here, I'm going to go through page by page, and you can see all the variety they have, all the different countries that are out there. The most countries agreed to participate. The omnibus all went in a style of 3 stamps in various colors and denominations. But some of the exceptions are Southern Rhodesia put out 4 stamps. Southwest Africa put a set of 16 stamps in total, 8 pairs of ranging from halfpenny to 1 shilling, with a pair of stamps being in 2 different languages. South Africa, similar to Southwest Africa, put out 5 pairs from halfpenny to 1 shilling and in 2 separate languages. New Guinea, Nauru, and Papua all used a set of 4 square stamps with the King's profile on the side. Canada, as I've talked about, put out a single 3-pence stamp, while Newfoundland created 11 for the series. So those were some of the wonderful stamps that had come out, and you can see there's a wide variety of them to show unity within the empire. That's why I've decided to team up with Liverpool Stamps. So you can go to www.liverpoolstamps.co.uk and look for these stamps all during the month of February. And if you put in the code TDGFEB, so that dad guy February is what it stands for, TDGFEB, you're going to get 25% off any of the stamps in the 1937 Coronation. So I hope you've learned a few things by tuning in today to the Stamp of the Month. I am looking forward every month to featuring something, and these stamps really were beautiful, really are beautiful, and to be able to collect them and know there's so many out there gives you a wide range of what the British Empire's expanse was at the time. And I've even had to search out some of these countries that I didn't even know existed, some of these island nations that weren't very big that issue stamps. So, you guys, have a magical week. What, Polo? You say like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends?
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
Bye.